I'm Jessica Ann Pressler, and you've tuned into Your Traitor Within, a podcast that exposes the brutal truths of healing, self-discovery, and breaking free from relentless patterns of self-sabotage. I'm with Margo Tucker, the founder and president of Tucker Senior Life Care and author of Aging Guidebooks. She has worked in care management field for over 30 years. She assists families in navigating the healthcare system, connecting clients and their families to local resources, and monitoring and acting as a liaison with families. Her care management services include advocacy, education, and guidance for clients and their families. Welcome, Margo, to Your Traitor Within podcast.
Thank you, Jess. I'm so happy to be here today.
I want to thank you ahead of time of being so vulnerable because I know that you're going to share your story of your traitor within.
So, I do believe my Traitor Within was formed very early in childhood. I was put up for adoption and I was adopted at 3 months old. And even though you can be brought into a loving family, I believe that there's still an element of abandonment and just being unloved, feeling like I was unloved. And that was such a driving force for me now that I'm learning about my Traitor Within, and speaking with you and doing, work on myself. It really guided all that I did for the rest of my life, really trying to prove myself
Mhm.
and to make sure that I was lovable,
Mm,
and likable.
mhm,
Those feelings of abandonment run so deep inside of me, and I could see it in, relationships with people,
mhm,
in my own sometimes self-doubt,
mhm,
of my worth and my value.
mhm,
And again, really a driving force in how I overcompensated
mhm, mhm,
for that.
mhm,
Um, my kids call me Smother. And I can giggle about that because I wanted to be that kind of mother who was always there for their children. But in the truth, there's also the other side of it that shows me that my behaviors of really trying to be involved in everything and fix everything and just love so hard,
mhm, mhm,
hoping that I would get that in return.
mm. Makes perfect sense. It really does. So, how did it show up in relationships?
Um, in relationships, I would say that I would easily get, very deep in. I would put all that I had,
Mm-hmm.
everything I had into relationships. So much so that I would always try to, um, again, prove myself and prove my worth and prove my love,
Mm-hmm.
by overdoing,
Mm-hmm.
um, over getting overly involved,
Mm-hmm.
kind of things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the total terror inside that I'm not worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And will this person love me? And will they continue to love me when they learn all about the things that I carry from my childhood?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sorry. I just want to hug you right now.
I know. I want to hug that little girl, Margo,
Yeah.
so badly and
What would
tell
you tell?
her.
Yeah, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that she is so loved and that she is so special. And that more importantly, I would say in the times of my life when I was really hurting and struggling, with all of this, and there's, drugs and alcohol in my story as an escape, of, getting away from who I really was. And was I really all the things that I hoped to be?
Mm-hmm. Now you have another piece too, the adoption piece, but you also have a relationship with your mother.
Can you talk about that?
You mean my birth mother, or because I did never met her?
No, I mean your
My mother. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
how that affected your Traitor Within or help.
Yeah, it took me all these years to realize that my mother did the best she could with what she had. She was also damaged. My grandmother was an alcoholic. She had no warmth, none. There was none of that, warmth and love and hugs and expression of love, from my grandmother to my mother. So my mother was very similar to that. She
Hmm.
was really broken on the inside, but put up all of these kind of fronts on the outside, making it seem like she was really achieving and striving. And in my house, it was conditional love,
Hmm.
and you were loved if you were skinny and pretty. And what mattered was what you wore, where you lived, what
Hmm.
you drove. It was all very superficial. My mother had no ability to connect with any emotional part of her,
Hmm.
leaving me craving,
Hmm.
craving
Hmm.
attention.
And how did you do that as a child? Let's talk about your childhood.
Yeah, so the attention really started when I was very young. I was 8 years old. I was in Miss Fink's class, and I stole a dime off her desk.
Hmm.
And that started, a whole like years and years of um, what's the word I'm trying to say? Years of like stealing and lying and all of it I know was for attention. And we can say, there's negative attention and positive attention, but I didn't get the positive attention. So I think that my actions were just, I was trying to get any attention,
Well, you said your mother was
really.
cold, right? She was
She was
so
very cold.
right. So you're looking for any attention,
Anything,
something. It's something to right.
anything.
Hmm.
And that continued.
Hmm.
And, as I got older, I became very promiscuous
Hmm.
because I was seeking love. I was seeking the the human touch,
Right.
but not in a positive way.
But you didn't have the tools to know what the positive way would be.
I
You know.
had no tools for anything. I wasn't taught any tools. In my house, it was just deal with it, get over it, and move on.
Hmm.
You pick up your, by your bootstraps and you go forward no matter what. And you don't look back, and you don't think about the emotion of maybe what was driving you. You don't think about that because, like I said, my mother had no ability to connect to emotion.
Well, you didn't have a model for one,
Right,
and you
right.
weren't taught those things, and you weren't taught your feelings were valid. It sounds like.
Exactly. They weren't valid. Um, my mother used to say horrible things to me, really horrible things. I remember when I was a teenager, she told me I was morose. And I had to look that up because I didn't even know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
Gloomy, glum, down. And that was such a juxtaposition of who I presented to the world because I was always happy. I was popular. I had the smile on my face. That's how I plowed through,
Mm-hmm.
just putting that front out there that I'm happy and that I'm loved and that all is great and I have everything.
In order to also be loved, right? You thought a
Yes.
happier person would be loved. And also, it sounds like your mother also had this two sides too, where she put a front up, right?
Absolutely. She
And
did.
and
And I want to say, my mother loved me fiercely,
Mhm. The best she could,
the best she could,
right?
but that wasn't what the child Margo
Right.
needed,
Or any child.
or any child. Yeah.
Child ideally needs to be in a world that he, they feel safe
Mm-hmm.
to grow and be themselves and to be able to express their feelings and their thoughts.
Right. And it I turned into a person who was very extreme with her emotions.
Mhm.
It was like either everything was so great or everything was so terrible. I didn't have much gray in
Mm-hmm.
my life. And I think that's because the gray is kind of the quiet part
Mm-hmm.
where you're more connected with yourself and your inner self.
Interesting.
And I didn't have an ability to do that then. I had
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to do that,
Mm-hmm.
later in life.
So then how did this piece of you come out in your, you talked about being promiscuous that when you were, young.
Hmm. Hmm.
How has it come out later in life? Not yet now, because I know that you're definitely recovered or recovering.
Hmm.
But
Recovering. I think it's a
like
process that
you're
you're
always
always doing,
all of us, the world, every.
Yeah, yeah. It showed itself in drugs and alcohol at an early age. I discovered pot at 13.
Mhm.
At 14, I discovered alcohol. I mean, I was so young.
You very
At
young.
15, I discovered Quaaludes, and that was my drug of choice. Why? It numbs you. It literally numbs you from head to toe. And I was not going to high school. I was dating, the wild guy that no mother really wanted their child to be dating. I went after those guys, the bad boys. Um, Maybe there was a sense of me that felt that there was something bad inside of me, right? Of why I was left behind by my birth mother that attracted that part of, boys to me. And I'm just figuring that out this second. As I'm talking to you, it's
Oh, you
kind
don't
of coming
remember.
to fruition of the connection there. Why, always, trying to, find those people.
Because of how you felt about yourself.
Exactly. But not knowing because I gave this beautiful premise. I was skinny, I was pretty, I was, involved and athletic and all that. It's like from the outside in, it looked like I had it all, and I think that was a lot of my family. I have two sisters, and our house was a lion's den on the inside,
Uh-huh.
screaming fights, slamming doors, running away, drugs, alcohol, defiant, defiant. I didn't listen. I didn't listen to anybody. I just did what Margo wanted to do, which was really numb herself from all
Right.
the inner pain, not realizing then that that was the reason why. I thought it was just because I enjoyed it. But I'm an alcoholic and I'm an addict. So took me to the next place of it being, such a big part of my life. And I think what was really interesting for me is that, growing up, I always thought, I'm going to work with children, right? It seemed obvious. I was a babysitter, I was a camp counselor, I did child ed in high school, and things like that. And I was lucky enough to get into college because my cousin worked in the admissions office and she actually got me in. And when I went to school, it had a great, so I knew I wanted to be a social worker. My cousin was a mentor to me. She was a social worker. I wanted to be just like Jamie because Jamie seemed to have it all. And I was doing internships every semester. And my third semester, my internship was at the Jewish home, the nursing home on North Miami Beach.
Oh. Hmm.
And I walked into the building, and my entire life took the sharpest right turn into me now wanting to work with the elderly because who I found there in that facility was me, the abandoned, the
Oh,
left behind,
wow.
unloved. I had no idea what happened to me. This was only more recent that I was able to piece it all together to see how my life evolved, especially with the traitor within traitors
Mm.
within, quite a
Yeah.
few pieces here all going at once. But that changed everything for me. Now I had purpose and now I had meaning that was of value. All
Uh,
right. I was going to save people, is really what it
and
came down to.
save them from feeling like you felt.
Exactly. I didn't want anybody to ever feel how I felt, let alone at the end of their life. That
Yeah.
was really, really powerful to see these elders where their families didn't visit. There was no communications, very little, and
Hmm.
the loneliness,
Hmm.
the sheer loneliness. And like it tapped into my own.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you were healing them. Did you feel you were healing yourself at the same time, or that came later?
I think I was, but I didn't realize it. But it came later because having to always prove myself that I'm of value and worthy, this gave me the perfect way to show that. I work with the elderly. It all seemed perfectly in line with where I was going.
Wow. Okay, so you go through life, you get married.
Hmm.
Did your Trader Within show up in your marriage?
Of course it did. My Trader Within shows up all the time. Hopefully not as much now that I'm more aware of it all, right? And working, which we'll talk about later. Um, it did by being that I had, where I grew up, you had to be perfect. There was only perfection. There was nothing less than perfection. And you weren't loved if there wasn't perfection. So in my marriage, everything had to be perfect. I made everything perfect. My household, how I ran it, the relationship, even though deep down the relationship wasn't perfect,
Mhm.
right? And I'm happily married, but there was, some things going on.
Mhm.
Um, so I would just always put up this front that everything was fine and everything was better than fine.
Well, it's also what you were taught in childhood. I mean, it's
Hmm.
what you know and how you acted as a child as well.
Hmm.
So it continued in your marriage.
Yeah, but I just want to say before that, with the drugs and alcohol, that still continued.
Mhm.
So even though once I found my place on this earth and what my purpose was, which was working with elderly, the drinking and drugging still continued, but I became what people would call the functional alcoholic,
Mhm.
still able to succeed,
Mhm.
still able to get my work done. But as soon as that work was done, I was just trying to numb myself.
Mhm. So when you when you came in recovery in regard to your alcohol, I don't want to jump ahead, but you're
Mhm.
then faced with this part of you that you had numbed. I mean, you're so brave. I mean, how did you do that? How did you allow yourself to feel? And how did it feel to
Mhm.
feel?
Yeah, yeah. I was able to allow myself to feel because of the support around me.
Mhm.
You being one person who has been very supportive in my life, and you and I have had deep conversations of the truth of what's, going on, and showing me that there's nothing to be afraid of to feel that, it's it's a powerful tool to be able to feel
Mm-hmm.
and to connect with that
Mm-hmm.
because then you can have an understanding. But until you connect with that, you don't really understand it. I can't say that there was any one time that I was just, taken aback by feelings per se or how it all unfolded. But I would say it was like a slow, like growing thing, like slowly trying to feel, slowly letting in, slowly not, drinking as much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And how are you feeling now? How are you feeling about you?
I feel so great about myself today. I have been in recovery. I went into AA 7 years ago.
Mhm.
It's interesting because when I was a little girl, and people would say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And, my friends would be like, "A ballerina, the president, the this, the that." I always said a mother.
Oh,
It was the only thing I wanted.
Mhm.
Maybe because I had to prove that I was going to do this different.
Mhm.
Sadly, I didn't do it totally differently because I wasn't emotionally available for my children for a few years while I was really in the throes of alcoholism. And today, and realizing, when I went into AA, it wasn't something that I was forced to do. It was something that I gave great thought about. I had the book, the big book.
Mhm.
I met with a friend who's in the program. I learned a little bit more about it. So I stepped in more clear-headed
Mhm.
because I was done with all of that. I couldn't live any longer in a state of being numb and not present.
Mhm.
And that here I was, a mother, the thing that I wanted more than anything in this world, and I was ruining my relationship with my children. And I was the lucky one because I didn't lose their love. Um, and I was a really great mom. Being a parent superseded my alcoholism for so many years that I was still able, I was really a good mom, but then it caught up with me. I couldn't keep the emotional lie going any longer. That I was great, everything was great and perfect and all of that. And I started having physical, symptoms, which I love. There's a book, The Body Keeps the Score, about trauma and how it affects your body. And I started having neck pain and, back pain and then knee pain. And at that point, I couldn't manage the emotional and the physical. That's when I just went spiraling out of control. But again, I was able to pull myself back up because that's what I was taught to do. And that is a good skill set if you can delve deeper, you know, not just plow through.
Right.
That
It's
I could, I had the confidence
Mhm.
that I could do this and I could do anything that I set my mind to because I was so successful in my job, my
Mhm.
marriage, my parenting, my community, very involved. Like I could do anything. So I went into the program 7 years ago and I started really learning to look at myself.
Mhm.
I did the work, I did the steps.
Was
Um,
it hard at first? Is it hard? Was it
it
always
was really hard. It was so hard to be so vulnerable.
right?
And for me, the hardest thing was to tell the truth
Ah.
because I was a fibber.
Mm-hmm.
I was embellisher. Like my stories had stories.
And I just put a blog out, I think last week, that fibbing is one of the trauma, is one of, comes out of trauma. That it's one of the ways that that's one of the trauma responses is fibbing.
That's fascinating
It's one of the
because
survival
that
mechanisms.
was me. That was me all the time,
Look at my blog, you'll see.
all the time. To make myself, it was a false sense of humility to make myself seem bigger and better.
You were trained by your mother.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
part of a traitor within isn't just not only just, but it's not just the
Right.
trauma. The trauma of how you feel if you're fearful of abandonment, you are then structuring your life not to feel abandoned.
Hmm.
Messaging and modeling that you learn in your childhood is what you've been taught. That's the tools. Unfortunately, they're not good tools when it comes to handling not being abandoned. So you have these tools, and one of the tools you had was this false persona, was
Yep.
And so of course you would, and incredible that you eventually were able to bring down those walls because it was part of you. It was your survival technique. It was
Yeah.
the creator within helping you survive and not feel abandoned.
And I know why. I know why those walls came down. Because when I walked into that room for my first meeting, I found what I was looking for my whole life, and that was unconditional love.
Hmm.
I was loved by all the women in that women's meeting.
And by the way, unconditional love, looking for that, being a child, because really you're still that inner child, part is what every child looks for. You're not needy when you do that. You're not, this is what every child deserves and every child looks for.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's where I found it. And because I found it, in the rooms of AA, I was able to be vulnerable. I was able to tell the truth because I felt completely safe.
And that's key.
Yeah,
Safe, safe,
safe, feeling safe, safe to be me with all
safe.
the wrinkles, warts, or the whole package, safe to be the real me and safe to let that out and let people hear and see, who I really am.
So I was asked on a podcast once, what is my idea of recovery, which is something I had not thought of. And my answer that came rolling out of my mouth was safe to be me.
We just, yep, there you go. Yeah,
Be
that
a
is
place in my life where I could just be me.
be me. That is, and that's where I'm working towards.
Mhm.
I'm feeling safer and safer every day. I'm about to put myself out there on social media.
And
Um,
you are amazing. What you're doing now, and we will continue to talk about your Traitor Within, but what you're doing now, helping people through, and if you want to explain it, we'll talk about it a little bit now. It's up to you. But
well, I'm just I am starting a social media channel that really helps people, gives them guidance on how to navigate the challenges of aging,
Mhm,
whether it's disease, whether it's, emergencies, it's falls, it's dementia, it's behaviors, it's stroke, it's anything, driving unsafe. How do you navigate that? And in all my years, that's what I've been doing, helping my clients and their families navigate every challenge of aging. So I'm really excited to put it out there, but I couldn't have put it out there any sooner than
mhm.
right now because I wasn't ready to put myself out there in that way. It took me a really long time to get out of my own way and to start filming little videos that have tidbits of information. I mean, months and months and months and months and months to finally break through. But once I did, the sense of freedom and the trust in it all. This
Mhm.
is my purpose here. I'm very clear what my purpose is on this planet. It's to make this world a better place through love, through education, through supporting others, and specifically, for the elderly.
Yeah, and you're doing an incredible job because we've talked about it. We've had, discussions about it.
Mhm.
And you're making, by doing it the way that you're doing it now, and after 30 years of experience, you're coming to people with this incredible vast amount of experience and constantly learning. I know you're still learning. Um, you're giving people the ability to get information very easily and very quickly.
Exactly.
You have to
Because
sit.
nobody knows what to do. And there's no one clearinghouse of information. And, I'm a Parkinson's disease specialist. So when you Google Parkinson's disease, it's overwhelming. Michael J. Fox, some of the big players, you've heard of them before, but how do you navigate it? What do you do? What do you do with that diagnosis? Where do you start? And that's all that I'm going to be sharing, not only on social media, but in professional guides that I've created
Mhm.
for the general public.
Which is absolutely amazing.
Thank you. I'm excited about it.
Girl would have looked forward and known that you would have ended up in here? Would you have understood that this incredible soul that you are would have blossomed and been able to now? I mean, you always gave back, but now giving back at a different place, like you're
Hmm. Hmm. The little girl me would never have known that, but the older girl me knew that the sky was the limit because once I had that experience in the nursing home and everything changed for me, I went on from, failing out of school to getting straight A's, going to an Ivy League graduate school, getting a job at one of the best hospitals in the world, Mount Sinai. It's like my track was,
Yeah.
I was on this track and it was just organically happening for me.
So can you now know that all this greatness
Hmm.
is you? That it's not the persona you made, but this is actually you.
I can. It's hard to come, it's hard to, it's hard to see that in yourself, especially when you don't want to feel like you're boasting or you're, kind of like full of yourself or anything like that, which I'm not, but I
Said this.
know my potential. I see my potential. And yesterday I celebrated 5 years of sobriety. And thank you. And that was, what an accomplishment. And like, I've been driven to accomplish, and again, it comes from a place of some trauma and, neglect and all of that. But I have to say, it's what drives me in a
Mhm.
positive way, taking all of that and using it in a positive way
Mhm.
to know that I am worthy and
Mhm.
I'm a beautiful person and that I'm not perfect and
Mhm.
that I do I give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I believe that everybody, or mostly everybody, does the best they can with what they have, and we don't know what they have.
No, we don't know what's going on, but
No
hopefully
idea.
you give yourself the same benefit of the doubt, that you give yourself the same grace that you give other people.
That's the key, is giving yourself grace, being really kind and compassionate to yourself. It's easy to be compassionate for other people for me,
Yeah.
but to be compassionate for myself was a very different thing.
Mhm. Do you feel,
And yeah,
do you feel that you have that in you now?
I do. I feel like I have a lot of compassion for myself. I wake up in the morning and I start my day with really quiet and prayer and trying to be the best Margo that I can be today, in all aspects. And I think about it. I think about it. I'm always, someone walks by, maybe, you know, not the prettiest woman in the world or whatever. And I would be like, oh my goodness, I love your smile or your dress or your nails or your this. I comment on purpose just because it lifts somebody's spirits, not necessarily because I believe what I say.
That does change someone's day. I mean, I
Yes.
every person you do it to, it's going to change their day. But I mean, I know that people literally have been will stop suicide from some moment like that. You know,
Hmm.
that connection that they weren't feeling before you said that or before someone else. I always tell people, please say hi to people when you walk by. It's 2 seconds, it just
Always. I hate when people don't look at you and smile. They're walking
because
right by
they may
me.
be having a bad day, but please.
Right. Right. I have to have compassion for them too, but
Exactly. But it's important because you really can. The simple things. I mean, like you said, for you, it was really important the support that you had at AA, right? So,
yeah,
that love, that unconditional love. If we could be kind to everybody, if we could just moments of kindness and support can really change the world. And certainly
absolutely.
one person at a time, but I really think that it can,
It
even if
does.
it creates people's lives, depending on who the person is that you're being kind to. And if someone just feels connection, I mean, I think, it's a wonderful thing. Even if it's a second, it can still people can hold on to that.
It's the human connection, exactly. And I think that that just goes back to the lack of human connection that I felt,
Right.
as a child, that
Right.
it's so important for me now to connect with even random people that I don't even know, to make that connection, to have some kind of connection.
It
It's so
sounds
important.
like this is an honest connection. And what I mean by that is, I know you always were honest, but you talked about that you fibbed sometimes and that you had this outwardly when things weren't so good, you made it look like things were better than where they are. Do you feel now that your life is more honest, that you can show people your vulnerabilities, that you can, if things aren't, that you don't have to have this fake persona, or do you still feel the pressure sometimes?
I still feel the pressure sometimes, but I can stop myself, and then
Mm,
now I can identify it,
perfect.
whereas before I didn't see it. I would just continue on that road. Um,
Mhm.
you know, overindulging, overdoing, that kind of thing.
That Traitor Within tries to tell you what to do again. You are able
Hmm.
to recognize it and put him, her, they to bed or to.
Yes, yes, to the side. And know that it's still a big part of me, and that's important. It's accepting the traitor within, like purely accepting, because that's the acceptance of me.
Right. So I hope that when we talk about the Traitor Within, that we have compassion for that part because it is a part of us. And it's also a part that had good intentions.
Yes.
It wanted to help. It just didn't know what it was. It was misguided help.
Yes, misguided, and yes, but it always came from a good place. It never didn't come from a good place.
It's that friend that gives advice that doesn't give good advice, but not on purpose. They meant
Yeah.
well. But it's learning that it's not good advice. And so you're saying to your Traitor Within, okay, thanks, but I'm not going to take it.
Right, right. Or being the one giving the advice and realizing, okay, you know what? My opinion doesn't matter here. Let me just listen to my friend.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So looking back, if you could give advice to people out there about the Traitor Within or yourself as a younger person, what would it be?
Oh boy. What would it be? I think, well, there would be a couple things. One is that um, it's work to be connected with yourself.
Mhm.
It's work. I've been in therapy. I'm in AA. I do work. I work on myself. It's not something, that is just there that I can kind of push to the side when I don't want it's, the traitor within, coming through. And the work, it was able to get me to the place to even recognize what the traitor within was and how it forms itself, in my day to day. I would tell myself or anybody struggling, don't do this alone.
Yeah.
Find support. It's out there. It may not be your friends, it may not be your family. I know what you're offering to people. I follow you, I read your blogs, all of it. Like, you're a great resource for support. So get support.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with like minded people
Mhm.
who really can understand,
Mhm.
who you are and what it is you're going through, because in this lifetime, the more support, I say to my clients, my elderly, aging clients, that the stronger your team, the better you do. The stronger your care team, the better you'll do, period. And
Mhm.
it's the same for anybody else.
Mhm.
The stronger your care team is, the better you're going to be able, the easier it's going to be, to go through this lifetime.
Mhm.
Because the lifetime's going to throw you a lot of curveballs. And that trader is always sitting right there. She's not gone.
Mhm.
It's not that through therapy or recovery that it's gone, but it's tangible and I can see it in action now with my behaviors and stop myself.
Right.
That's the difference.
And I think that's important to note. Thank you for doing that because the traitor, the goal isn't to get rid of the traitor. I mean, because you can't you can't kill her off,
Hmm.
but it's to acknowledge who she is, to know who she is. And when she wants to come out of the garage or whatever it is, that you have the tools to say no. And
Hmm.
no, thank you. Thanks for helping. Thanks for trying, but no, thank you. It's
Yeah.
not. Margo, thank you. You are incredible. I mean, thank you for being so vulnerable. Thank you for all your knowledge that you bring to this too, as a social worker, as a therapist, because you're very insightful. And thank you for being such a giving, incredible, wonderful, compassionate, empathetic soul and helping the world in what you do. not just as a professional, but as a human being who walks down the street and says hello to people, and as a friend. So thank you for being my friend as well. I'm proud
Well,
to have you as my friend.
I can say the same things right back to you, Jess, and you're a part of my team. You're a part of my care team, you
Oh,
know, and yeah, always and have been for years. That's how I go through this lifetime. But I'm so grateful for you, and I'm grateful for all that you're sharing, for other people to hear, because it's through telling the stories, through conversations, that maybe someone heard something that tapped into or they connected with, to bring more insight for them.
I am a big believer that stories is a great way to teach, which is why I did my book that way instead of, and it started off being more of a manual. I'm like, no, I'm doing this self-help book differently. I'm telling my story. And that's what I hope that this podcast does. It lets people tell their stories, and people will see themselves and learn about themselves in other stories.
100%. I've listened to all of your podcasts, and they really, rang home, all of them in their own way. All different stories, all different people, but some underlying themes that were just true to me too. So I got a lot out of that. So thank you for putting it out there and
Thank
doing
you
what you
for listening
do.
to them and being so supportive of this.